Typically on podcasts, we work really hard to, everybody does, to preserve their voice. But today, I'm not so certain that one person at this table took that seriously.
I don't know what you're talking about, guys. I feel great. Just sound ridiculous.
Just as a service announcement, Darren has not taken up smoking. He is, in fact, safe at home. Everything's okay. Just a little bit of a cold.
You know, I want to say this is all from encouraging the recruits at the 20-hour day. I did do some yelling, some encouraging there at the end of their night, and some of you know what that's about. But no, this is just stuff trying to clear out of me, I guess.
Did you know that men scientifically get sicker than women?
Really?
Yep. When we get the cold, it's actually scientifically proven. It's worse on men.
So that man flu thing is real.
It's like tenfold worse.
The study was in fact done by a man, but I don't think it's biased. I think it's factual. So
yeah, I think Gareth was that man.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
So I think today we could take what you said a second ago, and that could be very much a catch slogan for today. Feel great, sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's me. And I'm sorry, folks. I will not do a lot of talking today because of this.
Either that's a blessing or that's a curse. We don't know.
Ask my wife. I'll let you do that, Adam.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I think I'm going to stay away from that one. So, yeah. Well, I tell you what, without further ado, we're going to jump into what today's episode is all about. Today is a two-part series we're doing on hearing from spouses of officers and what it's like to live in the world of having your spouse on the beat, on the job, all the things that comes with that as being the person at home. And so we're really excited to have a wife of an officer here today. And what we're going to do is we're going to let her introduce herself, tell us a little bit about who she is, what she does, and a little bit about their family. So take it away.
My name is Meg Veal. I am the wife of Officer Greg Veal with the Roanoke City Police Department. He has been with the department about 3 years. And I work for Roanoke City Department of Social Services. I'm a senior foster care worker.
Awesome.
Man, I don't know who's got the tougher job. Holy cow.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Goodness day. So, wow. Well, how long have you and your husband been in this world of law enforcement together?
So we have been together for 8 years this month.
Okay.
We've been married for 7. And he just finished his FTO phase when we first started dating.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yes. So I've been with him pretty much from the beginning.
Now, with your family, do you have anybody that's in law enforcement?
Not law enforcement. Both of my grandparents or grandfathers are military. My dad was military. A bunch of my cousins are military. That's actually what I wanted to do as well initially.
Okay. So you had a little understanding of that culture, but nobody that's officers.
Nope. Nobody that's officers.
Just your husband.
And so I think from our conversation before the episode, like you guys didn't start here. You were in another state, another area. And so you experienced what it was like there. And then you come here and you experience what it's like here. Any comparison between the two?
Well, it's hard because I grew up here. But in Atlanta, which is where we were from, it's very high volume. It's a lot of... Yeah, it's very different. Roanoke, it's very small. It's same shifts.
One thing I would say is that our officers, one thing we hear from a lot of our officers here is it's very high volume here. So in comparison to a place like Metro Atlanta or, Metro DC, Nashville, places like that, this would probably seem like small potatoes compared to that, even though this is a bigger city, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, especially surrounding communities that we serve that are smaller towns, that kind of thing.
Well, I think here the biggest difference is it's stacked calls, whereas in Cobb, it was, he would be on a call for 2-3 hours, and then they'd be sitting for a couple of hours doing reports, watching for DUIs, things like that. So they weren't stacked calls because they had higher officer volume.
Okay.
And a larger area because it was county versus a city. So that is one thing that Greg has said since coming here is that the calls, you're kept busy. It's nonstop, especially depending on your beat. He was in the Southeast beat, so he was busy from, clocking in to clocking out.
Yeah. I was talking to an officer's spouse over the weekend, and I just ran into them, and we were just talking, and I asked them how, because I knew it was their spouse's rotation that weekend, and so I just said, "How's their weekend been?" Just checking in, seeing how they were doing, and asking the spouse how they're doing. I said, "Well, they got home Saturday morning and were just whipped. They had 26 calls for service the night before and said that their spouse was just whipped, absolutely whipped after that night.
Some departments, you're talking about county versus city. With SHIELD, we started in Roanoke City. And as we expanded, we moved to other smaller jurisdictions or counties or sheriff's office. And so there is a vast difference in call volume. And so when we talk about county, I can identify with that. Going on calls, you are on certain calls for a couple hours, and you get to see that through. Sometimes you're the first investigator, if you will, for crimes. You take care of a lot of the evidence initially. In the city departments, you have 26 calls for service. There's a full-time evidence techs. There's full-time detectives. So it's a whole different policing. One of the coolest things about your husband, I actually worked with him in Southeast. One particular day I was riding with another officer, and doing his oral board, I heard kind of the progression of his career, and he got into some really cool stuff, and I'll let you unpack that later if you choose to, but got into some really, really cool stuff later on at that department. And I asked him, I said, so how is it going from that to now you're working in Southeast Roanoke? And I will always remember his response. He was so positive, and that's why one of the reasons we interviewed him here on the podcast, because some could say he's like toxically positive.
Yes.
In every situation, there's a positive out of it. And I'm like, just call it bad, Veal. It actually is bad. But he said, I'm so excited to be back on patrol. He said, I don't think I could ever master this job. And every day is a learning experience.
Wow.
Yeah. I think the city, it's a lot of community policing versus where we were before. It was reactive policing. It wasn't anything proactive.
Yeah.
Wow.
The city's really, really invested in that. I think when we started many, many moons ago, some would say that it was reactive. But Roanoke City's taken huge steps with the Real-Time Crime Center, with Community Response Bureau.
Reset.
Reset walks. Really invested in that equity, as Chief calls it, that relational equity, so that when things happen, they can kind of bank on that. So it is a huge difference. From the place where you were before in Atlanta, do you know the department size was at a larger department than Roanoke City?
It was much larger. It was Cobb County Police Department, and I think they had anywhere from 700 to 2,500 officers. I don't know the exact number. It was a larger department, though.
Yeah, it's pretty sizable.
That's a huge area down there.
Yeah,
So,
it encompasses several of the bigger cities, Marietta, Smyrna. It borders right on areas of Atlanta. So it is very metropolitan.
man. Well, so we brought you on here because we wanted to hear from, people see your husband a lot. He's on the front lines, and now being at the academy, he's training new recruits and being able to be a part of their journey. But a lot of people don't get to see you and hear from you as his wife. I don't know, your job kind of puts you in the front lines, but from a police standpoint. So what we want to do is we want to talk to you about what it's like serving and being his wife as a wife of a law enforcement officer. So if we ask you this question, what's the first thing that comes to mind when we ask, what's it like being married to a police officer?
Challenging.
That was quick.
Yeah, that didn't take long at all.
Challenging.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Love my husband. I wouldn't change him for the world, but it's very challenging.
Yeah.
His love for the job, I think, is what's made us persevere so much with him being in this career.
Wow. So I'm sure there's probably like this back and forth weight balance of things that are really great and things that are really challenging, right?
Yes.
It kind of swings back and forth.
Yes.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What are some of the great things, some of the awesome things that make it, that really make it great being married to someone who's a law enforcement officer?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for our family specifically is safety. He has safety awareness wherever we are, which is great. And that's honestly made me a lot more aware on my job. When I'm out on calls, there's training that I've done here. There's training that Greg has helped me with that I know that I'm safe, which I think is very important. And some of the other great things, I mean, I'll be working or I'll be interacting with other people in the community and I'll say my last name and it'll immediately recognize with them. It's a rare name, but it's wonderful to hear awesome things about my husband. from people that I don't know,
Yeah.
just having a single interaction with him. Oh, he
That's
responded to a call at my house. And especially when it comes from like one of my teens on my caseload, I think that's really great.
That's awesome.
Especially just thinking about the tenure that he's been in here. He's not been at Roanoke City a long time.
Nope, just 3
But
years.
The impact that he's made kind of goes back to what you were saying, that he truly loves his job.
Yes.
Truly loves it. And he just in that short time, he's already made an impact where you're seeing it on a different side of that fence. That's pretty cool. It was interesting to me that you said that one of the good things was the safety awareness. Sometimes you'll talk to officers and their spouses, and that's something they disdain. They don't like that their husband is, we talk about,
Head on a swivel.
yeah, they talk about the stoplight effect. The guys that are on red and they see red all the time, and there's danger everywhere. It's big, it's bad. Then there's the yellow where you're like, I think we're going to be okay, but I'm not going to let my guard down. Green is when you're just absolutely cool as a cucumber. Most of those guys don't ever go down to that green ever again. They stick at that yellow, and it's a mild yellow, but we don't go back to green ever again. From hearing from you, it sounds like that safety awareness has been a good thing for you.
It has. Greg, he married a Disney adult. So we don't go to concerts, but we go to Disney.
Yeah.
So those are the situations where he's always red.
Mm-hmm.
He's always looking around because there's so many people near us. But, you know, if you're not in this field, you don't think about the things that you need to be thinking about when you're out in public in large groups. And I mean, that's especially prevalent today with everything that's been going on recently.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. And I think it's such a great thing for us to be teaching our children is that you need to be safe, trust the community and the people that you're around, but you need to be aware that not everybody has the best intentions. Just don't assume, but obviously keep in mind that you need to come first sometimes. So I do, and you know, as a smaller female, I think it's very important that I know how to protect myself and that I'm aware of those situations.
I can't wait for my wife to listen to this. We have tried unsuccessfully to help my wife have her head on a swivel a little bit more. We've tried some self-defense techniques and things, and she just threw in the towel and said, if someone attacks me, I'm just going to give them a hug. And I'm
I
like,
think that's a teacher thing.
She's a kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
It's,
Some situations you don't love your way out of.
Yeah.
That's the only thing she knows. Is, you know,
Just try that card, see what happens. What would you say, this is a little bit off script, but just thinking through some of the conversations I've had with spouses, and like I said, they disdain that their husband won't let them blank or is restrictive or on that red, and they actually disdain that a little bit. It's not a good thing. What would you say to it? Maybe a new spouse that has never had law enforcement, has never been aware that there are that type of people in this world. What would you say to her if she's experiencing that and going, I wish my husband wouldn't blank?
I would say to give him grace, talk to him, communicate with him. I think that's going to be key is sitting down and having a conversation. Why is this a red light? Why are we at that point? And I think typically, because Greg initially, that's how he was. But I think initially once, especially the people are comfortable with each other, you settle into your marriage, he settles into his career, it loosens up a little bit because, you know, you do fall into that routine and you get comfortable. But I think communication is the biggest thing when, you know, there's any kind of disagreement on anything to do with that. Talk it out.
Yeah.
Here's how I feel. This is why I feel this way. Like, I understand that you see this, or maybe I don't understand yet. But this is not what I see on a daily basis, and come somewhere in the middle.
Cool. I think that would help you feel, instead of controlled, probably, I can't, I won't, I shouldn't, to no, this is because I love you and I don't want you to be hurt.
Yes.
So that's a different page in that book.
So let's swing the pendulum the other way, and we probably just kind of dove into that a little bit with this conversation. But we talk about the things that are being great. What about just in general, what are some of the things you would say right out the gate? Off the top of my head, I would say these are some challenges I face as being a spouse of an officer.
Well, I've lost friends over Greg being a police officer.
Wow.
Specifically back a couple years ago during the riots in Atlanta. People that have known Greg since he and I have been together, just because he's a police officer, they won't associate with us, which is very hard. Obviously, the hardest thing is the uncertainty that comes with the job.
Sure.
I'm so lucky right now. We're so blessed that he's at the academy. He's not on the beat, which is great because he's safe.
Yeah.
He's driving back and forth, but he's safe. When he's not, when he's on the beat or he's in the city, taking calls, there's that uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to come home tonight? Is he going to respond to a domestic violence that's going to go sideways? What's going to happen? That's my biggest worry. And an issue that I've had from the beginning with him being a police officer. That's been one of the hardest things to digest, especially Greg was on SWAT back when we were in Atlanta. And they were on call all the time. So he would be responding to officer-involved shootings or active shooters, or he'd be responding to these difficult situations that he couldn't tell me about.
Mm-hmm.
And for hours on end, couldn't tell me he was safe. And me being a control freak, that's really hard to not know where he is, what he's doing, like when he's on a tough call. I think that's probably the hardest, is the uncertainty.
So I know we asked about this before we got started, and I think maybe this may be a good time to just kind of toss this in there. The recent shooting that happened in Atlanta, and you hear about, that was a very, very close department to who he was working, nearby from, and people that they worked hand in hand with at times. When you hear that kind of thing, how does that affect you when you hear something like that?
Oh, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Greg too, he kind of tries to be a little more flippant about it. That's his coping mechanism. Yeah. We initially heard last night that it was a Cobb County officer, which obviously was very upsetting. So I think I spent probably an hour just frantically searching all of the news sites, trying to figure out what was going on. Law enforcement's a community. It's a family. So those partnerships that we had, they're strong. I mean, we were there for such a long time. We were there for 5 years. And with what he did, he worked with all of those departments. So all you can do is just pray. I was very upset. But you have to understand, you've got community behind you. If you're ever in that situation, you've got family supporting you. They may not be blood, but we are all here. And if it was somebody that we knew, like it was a couple of years ago, we would be right there with them.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like, just from hearing you, that those fears are reasonable, right? That you have a husband that is serving and protecting families like mine. There has to be somebody in the world that says, I will stand between innocent people and I will stop the evil. And at SHIELD, we obviously celebrate those men and women. They are heroes, and that's why we're here. But there's certainly a cost to those that don't carry the badge and gun.
Your first thought's the family.
Yeah, there's certainly a cost there. And we talk about the ultimate sacrifice, and in some regards, that's an easier thing to talk about. These big moments where there's a critical incident, and we think about the spouse and the kids. There's been an officer-involved shooting or an officer's injured. Our first thought is the family. One of the things that we have tried to be intentional with SHIELD, and sometimes we would say that we were unsuccessful in this, that we missed the mark. But the day-to-day grind on the spouses of law enforcement, the weight of the badge and gun, outside of these big hot-ticket items that everybody hears about on the news, the 26 calls over the weekend, the coming home dead. How have you dealt with that?
Not well over the entire course of our relationship together. It was particularly difficult when we were first dating. And I think for a lot of younger, we were younger, a lot of younger couples, you want to go out and do things with your significant other. You want to go to Braves games. You want to hang out with friends. Greg was on permanent midnights. So he was 8 to 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. for 5 years. And God love him. He wanted to make me happy. He would survive on 4 hours of sleep so that, we could spend the day hiking. We could have that quality relation time. And that is, it's difficult, understanding that he just worked a 12-hour shift. Like, he needs more than 4 hours of sleep. He needs to have that time, to decompress and not to always be going.
So this made me think of something for law enforcement, for the officers. There's some pretty decent systems that we've put in place to help them navigate the stresses of the job. In terms of wellness, we believe the mental, physical, and spiritual, they're all connected. They're all equally valuable. And so spiritually, obviously, as chaplains, we focus on that. Then there's our partners in mental health that help officers when they struggle through stuff. In physical health, there's a lot of people now that are investing in that. So there's a lot of systems with peer support, with counseling, with buddy check systems, a lot of things to make sure those guys do well. Are there any community things or systems for spouses of law enforcement?
Not that I'm aware of in the Valley. I will say I'm very lucky. I work with several spouses of Roanoke City specifically, through the department, through, other community partners that I work with on a regular basis, which is really nice because I have them to lean on, especially when we were new to the department. But that's it. That's all that I know of is just outreaching yourself.
Yeah.
So have you, just out of curiosity, since you brought up the other spouses that you work with and stuff, do you have some significant relationships with some spouses and some other officers that you kind of lean on that help you?
I do. Here at this department, they are all coworkers that I'm closest with at our old department. I was close with the wives or significant others with everybody on his shift, including his sergeants. He had the same sergeants actually for a really long time, a couple years, which was really nice because we got to know each other. But yeah, I definitely lean on my coworkers who are experiencing a lot of the same things.
In your line of work, you've seen the power of a community, right? So maybe we need to do a little bit better about helping develop a community for the spouses.
Yeah, for sure. And too, like with that, like they're not the only ones who deal with all of this at home. That when families start expanding, then children are brought into the mix, and so now it's not only the spouse that it's affected, but now the kids are starting to feel that weight and feel dad or mom being gone or whatever. So you guys, y'all are parents.
We are.
So we've talked a little bit about how this affects you, but what about your kids? How does it affect your kids?
Well, thankfully, our child Christopher has not been affected too negatively because he's young. I will say when Greg was on shift rotation prior to coming to the police academy, he did struggle more with connecting with his dad consistently. Kids connect with their dads through play.
Yep.
They love to wrestle. They love to do all of that. That's how they get that bond. He didn't have that when he was on the beat. Because he wasn't able to consistently spend days, weekends, whatnot with him. So he would frequently keep him home from like daycare. However, now that he's at the academy, which is, just shows the shift differential. Their relationship has evolved so significantly. But I think for older kids, that distance, that parent being gone for certain things, the parent who is on shift and can't get it covered, for a soccer game or for practice, I think that would have the biggest impact, especially on like preteen years, because they're in that me kind of phase where they're not really understanding that there's things outside of them and their practices, everything that's the world to them. So not having their parent being able to be there, I think, is a huge deal.
Man.
It's one of the things that we have tried to with Shield when we're talking with spouses, talking with officers about being very, very intentional about what you can be. There's so much that's outside of the officer's control when it comes to their schedule and calendar and stuff like that. But those things that are, it's really imperative that couples are proactive with the things they can control about their schedule. And you just highlighted it with families, with children, have to schedule that time and follow through when you can, because there's going to be all those other times that you can't, that there are going to be games missed. There are going to be times when dad's just exhausted and just got back from that shift and they need some downtime, but you can't just throw in the towel on being a husband, on being a dad. You still have to be proactive and be actively involved, but it takes a lot of extra work, extra discipline in order to do that. And I would say in your case, knowing your husband, wow, what a disciplined person.
Yes, he's always intentional.
Yes. So I would imagine that'd be something that he would do well at, but of course he's got you there to make sure to hold his feet to the fire on that too. So that's good.
Yeah, he's always been very intentional, which is something that I'm so thankful for. I think that's key, is those intentional interactions.
So, and you were talking about just a minute ago, like, man, he sacrificed sleep just so that we could go and do things and stuff like that. But what are some like real, like just normal day-to-day things where you have found you guys have been intentional and just in protecting your time, like especially when he's off, of just being a family, being a husband and wife, being parents? Like what are just some realistic day-to-day things you guys have done and just being intentional and taking care of that time?
Keeping the phone down. Those group chats.
Ouch.
Those group chats are nonstop. And I'm just as guilty on my side, with my career too. So that's something that we both have to actively keep in mind, is we need to keep our phone down. A 4-year-old doesn't understand. But you also need to show your partner and your child that they're more important.
Yeah.
And always being glued to a group chat doesn't show them that. So we've also, when we do that, we'll plan, we took Chris to the zoo one day as a family. It was like a random Thursday. I took a mental health day. And we were just very intentional about spending time with him. We took him to do some of his favorite things. And we didn't talk about work, either of our works. We didn't look at our phones. And that's something that we try to do, not all the time, but pretty frequently.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is cool.
Heard a family recently that has taken that and kind of taken that footpath and made it a highway. They have a box. It's like a charging box on their counter. And when they come home for dinner, they actually give their phones to their kids, and their kids will go plug them up in this box for them. It's like a symbolic thing of saying, I'm handing you my work and you can go put it up for me. That way I can be all in for you. It's kind of neat.
I like that.
Well, and I'm going to be honest, I have been toiling with the decision, or with a decision potentially. I feel like this has gotten taken a step worse with smartwatches, right? Because you can put your phone down, but then you're constantly, I've even noticed just this episode, I've gotten 10 texts, 7 emails, a couple of things that are fairly important, but I'm not going to handle them until later. But just the constant of looking at my watch. And actually, just recently I was in a conversation with somebody, and there was a group chat that was of something pretty important that was going on. And I kept looking at my watch, and he's like, "Do you need to go?" And I was like, "Man, I'm an idiot. Like, I shouldn't be looking at my watch that much." And I'm almost wondering, like, should I just go back to a standard watch so that I'm not doing that all the time?
I have my watch or my phone scheduled to have like personal time when I enter my house, and it as soon as we enter our neighborhood, it turns on, so I don't get any of the notifications to my watch. So anytime,
That's smart.
anytime I'm doing something that I don't want to, because I'm very ADHD, so I'll get distracted very quickly. Anytime I'm doing something that I don't want to be distracted, needs my full attention, I always turn do not disturb on, and it'll push through like my emergency contacts, but anybody else, it silences it, and I can just focus.
I've had to do that with my my phone. There's some. If you're listening to this, I love you dearly, but there is a particular officer that works nights and assumes that I also, and I do work some nights, probably 2 to 3 nights a week. I'm working, but not every night. And they will send me random photos of like deer and trucks, and my phone bings at 3 a.m. and I immediately wake up and think someone's been shot, something's happened, and it's like his favorite coffee mug, and I'm like, I have violent thoughts at 3 a.m. So I've had to put it on do not disturb, and then I put dispatch and all the sergeants and lieutenants in there. That way it can come through, but.
Yes, Greg doesn't do that. So his former platoon or whatever they call him at the city, when they're on nights, his phone very frequently wakes me up from just the buzzing, the lighting up. It's infuriating.
Yeah. So we've talked about time intentionality and things as a family, but I want to ask you something a little bit more personal, and it's on our list. It's not anything you weren't prepared for, but. As a wife, what things have you intentionally done to take care of your emotional well-being when dealing with when he's on the job and wondering those questions? Is he okay when I haven't heard from him in hours, or those kind of things? What kind of things have you intentionally done to take care of you?
Well, the gym is a big one. Working out, running, treadmill, whatever. It kind of helps that busy head.
Yeah.
Women think about 50,000 things all at once while they're talking to you about something completely different. So you can imagine the level that goes on.
I don't think we can. I live with a wife. I see the effects of it, but I'm like, man,
you can see it. You can see it.
Must
turning.
be exhausting.
Yes. That's a big one. I mean, it silences a lot of that irrational fear. I mean, just because somebody's going out on a Tuesday night, that doesn't mean they're not going to come home.
Yeah.
And that's easy to be your first thought. Another is we do try to go to church every week. That's something that we've been real intentional with since we moved back to Roanoke. We go to my childhood church, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So I have a really solid support system there, which is helping me learn how to channel my anxiety about his job specifically in healthier ways to kind of take care of myself. And then spending time with my son and my husband. It's big. We're not big talkers about feelings in the house, but that's something that we're trying to do to make it a little bit easier to cope, especially when there's situations of critical incidents. And then, like I said before, that support system of my friends that also have spouses in law enforcement or like the fire community, that really, really helps take care of my emotional.
Yeah.
Can we circle back just for early on? You had mentioned in this conversation about losing some friends simply because your husband is an officer. And that's something that's been very common. We have heard from several spouses of officers. First of all, I would say I'm sorry. It always saddens me to hear that. But what would you want people to know that are outside of the law enforcement circles that might be listening into this podcast? what is it that you would want them to know about having, being a law enforcement couple, and, what would you want them to just understand about what it is to be married to an officer, and who your husband is and that kind of thing?
He's a man. He's a person. He's not the badge. He's not some jerk who just wants to pull you over and give you a ticket or, take you to jail. Half the time, he doesn't care. I mean, if you're not hurting somebody, go on with your day. And, when he's not working, he minds his business. Like, he's not going to bother you. But that's the biggest thing is these are people, these are families, like family members who have husbands, wives, kids that love them, parents. I think it's very important that people understand, like, it's a job.
Yeah.
It's literally just a job. Yes, it's an all-encompassing job and it's very difficult, but he cares about you. That's why he does this job. And the same for spouses. I mean, that's why we are married, stay married to law enforcement is, we do that for the community that we serve, because there's love there, and, they're people too.
Yeah. Turns out he puts his pants on the same way as everyone else.
He does.
They just have more pockets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of
More
what
pockets, more stuff.
What I heard you say is if someone has an officer in and around them, you probably don't come up to them and say, hey, here's the last time I got a speeding ticket. Or, hey, what do you know about this? Or, I saw a cop do this one time. Turns out he's just a person. Talk to him like a person. Is that...
People do come up to him and say, hey, can you get me out of this ticket?
I know.
We're like, hey,
Yep.
what happened on 5th Street? But
Mhm.
like, yeah, he's just a person.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that you also talked about earlier was the importance of communication. You were talking about a little bit about that, but especially in this world, there's a lot of things I'm sure that he is unable to share. His job requires him to keep some things, a significant amount of things, confidential. In a marriage where you're trying to keep communication open, how hard is that? And especially is that difficult for you, where he works in a job where a lot of times he can't share things that's going on at work, or is that helpful instead?
It kind of varies. We're kind of an outlier because I work in a field where confidentiality is key. I mean, child welfare. But I also work in a field that very frequently intersects with his. There's been situations where he's on call with us. If he's on call and I'm on call, which wouldn't happen because we've got kids, we would excuse ourselves. One of us would, to maintain that confidentiality at home. Recently there was a situation where one of my cases ended up needing involvement on his part. And we were very careful to not toe the line, to make sure that child's privacy was respected.
Gotcha.
So for me, that it's not very difficult. I could see it being difficult for spouses who aren't familiar with the need for that. Because, your spouse goes to work for this long time and they see all this exciting things and, they deal with all these people and you want to hear about it. But I think hearing about it probably makes it worse. The things that they can share sometimes, I think that drives the worry that the things that they can't share, it's that much harder for the individuals who are not as familiar with that. So that one, it really has not impacted us in a negative way. It actually kind of helps us to distance ourselves a little bit from it. We can talk about the stresses, the trauma, the significance of what it makes us feel, and be honest about that. And it's nice because I have a partner who understands what I'm going through and I understand to an extent what he's going through, which I think has really been beneficial. But that's
big. That's really big. Sometimes we are taught traditionally that ladies why you guys are wired so differently than us is because you have the capacity to love at a deeper level, typically. And to do that, you have to have all the details. So you want to know everything. What were you wearing? Where were you standing? Was it raining? Was it sunny? Where was the car? And you want the whole picture. And it's not necessarily a control thing. I want all the details so that I can know what you were feeling, so that I can love you through it. Oftentimes officers will come home and don't want to relive the past 12 hours. Some of the shifts that we have worked, I don't want to come home and with me and Adam working in fire and EMS, I want to come home and I want to take my uniform off. I want to take a shower and I want to sit on the couch. I don't want to relive what I just survived. But what that does is that pushes my spouse away, and she can't love me in those areas. But what you said was so cool. I can say I had a really awful shift. A lot of bad things happened, and my emotional tank is empty. And that probably would have given her a lifeline to know where I was at I didn't have to relive anything.
You don't have to dump on her.
Nope. But here's where I'm at. Instead of saying, yeah, I'm good.
Yep.
Because she knows different. That's huge.
Well, and I think something she said too, she said, they've got to do the exciting things. You just want to hear about them. But I think we know this is like, there are times where for these officers, that's how it feels. But I would say more times than not for them, it's exactly what you just said. That wasn't exciting for them. It's exciting for everybody who's watching it on the news and would love to have the ins and outs of everything that's happening. But for them, that was work, and I really just want to go home and not have to talk about that again. That wasn't exciting like everybody else sees it. They don't see it with the perspective that these officers see and experience it.
Yeah, a canine chase, while it's fun to watch, I doubt it's much fun to participate in.
I will tell you, it is not.
I've heard about officers like urinating on themselves, which is funny. So
yeah, I have not done that yet, but when the canines come out, it is not a party time. It is not fun. It is not cool. Yeah. Oh boy. And then they smell your fear, which makes it even worse.
It drives.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, just talking about one of my traumas. There we go. It's the worst.
I'm just curious, what would you say to the officers out there who might be listening who they don't want to say anything to their spouse or their significant other? They don't, because they want to protect them. They don't want to share things. And so they don't. And because what we tend to hear is from the other side is like, I hear my husband, I hear my officer talk to his coworkers and friends, and they're in those texting groups and they're doing all this stuff.
But they're not talking to me. So what would you say to those officers who think that they are protecting their spouse or whatever by not talking about things at all? They're making it worse. They're shutting their spouse out from a very significant portion of their lives. It's a job, but that's also 10, 12 hours of your day. And you're going to go home and have, whatever after effects of the shift. And you're going to not communicate with your wife and or your significant other, I guess. Mm-hmm. I know females specifically, they're going to latch onto that, and they're going to not necessarily cause a problem, but they're just going to think there's a problem because you're not communicating, or, that's such a silly, it's not silly, but it is silly to think that you're protecting your spouse by not telling them about your day, because you can tell somebody about your day and not tell them about your trauma of your day. You don't need to tell them about a difficult, a child call or something like that. You can tell them, the highlights. You can tell them about, a funny call or an interaction with a coworker, just something so that you're communicating with your spouse that, you do value them and you value communication with them. That was a big sticking point at the beginning of our relationship. Greg he didn't want to sully me on being a police officer. He didn't want to, burden me with that. And that's something that took several years for us to work through and to encourage And really not until I started doing what I'm doing and I can understand it in a different light did he really start opening up and talking about his day consistently. But I think it's very important to understand, like, that's a big part of your life. Even if it's just your job, you need to communicate.
Just talked to an officer last night, actually. We were going to watch a family movie, and they called, and I looked at my wife, and she gave me the thumbs up to take it. So I was like, all right, pass that test, and walked into the room, and the officer began telling me what had happened that day. And his saying is, he said, I began to tell my wife, and my wife said, stop. Would you please call Gareth? She was like, I can't do that. That situation, I need the Disney version of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, would you call Gareth, please? So those boundaries, I think men struggle with that. Either I don't tell you anything,
or I tell you too much.
Yeah, or I go over here. And my wife has said that multiple times. I don't want that image in my head, or I can't carry that. So that's the other outlier. So you would say, from your perspective, just shoot that middle gap.
Yes.
Let them in. Talk in generalities. You don't have to paint the rated R picture of everything.
You don't. And I mean, it can be situational too. But yeah, spouses don't need to hear about some of the nitty gritty. Mm-hmm. You want to keep your relationship, I think, separate to a certain extent, but you do need to talk about those things that you're experiencing and that you're feeling.
Now, it turns out you probably know what version you want. So maybe we could ask you, right? Maybe officers could ask their spouse, hey, what version would you like, before you share that? Because there are absolutely some spouses, some wives that want that, all the details kind of thing. And then there's some that, like, I want this as Disney as you can make it for me. I think we need to respect that and just understand that might change as well. Don't assume that if your spouse used to like all the details, that 5 years in they still want all the details. Maybe they said that early on because they wanted to be, they
supportive.
felt like they were being supportive by saying that. Maybe you need to ask them again, hey, do you need all the details, or would you prefer that I just kind of give you the gist of things? And again, the communication is the key.
I think gauging their emotional capacity at the time is also important. If your spouse has had a difficult day and you're about to lay a difficult call on them, I think that's also key too.
Read the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had it just reminded me, this is a loss in this box. This is not a win for this guy. He was actually involved in an officer-involved shooting, and pretty significant incident. Called his wife and said, hey, just went through an incident or whatever. I'm going to come home and take a shower. Would you put a trash bag on the steps so I can change clothes? Because he had blood all over him. His wife did not know the incident. She just thought, oh, he just needs a new change of clothes. So he got home, went and took a shower, put all of his clothes in the thing, and sat down on the couch. And somebody called to check on her and said, hey, I heard this happen, everything good? And she was like, what do you mean? And he didn't tell her that he had almost died and had to shoot and kill somebody. And he was sitting on the couch drinking coffee.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That was a loss. And not to defend him, because I don't think you would tolerate that real well.
No.
But what I think he was doing is saying that my wife worries about my safety every day. This was a close one. We survived it. I'm going to change clothes, take a shower. We're going to go to the next one. And I'm not going to put that on her. That was probably not the thing to do. I understand why he's trying to do it. But again, maybe we need to shoot the middle ground. Maybe we need to shoot the middle of that.
Communicate maybe just enough to know that, it's not my blood.
Yeah.
And it was a big one.
Gonna have some time off.
Yeah.
Have some time off. Everything is okay. We're good now. Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you for that. That was a gem, to be able to communicate the emotions. Hey, I am tired. I and emotionally I got nothing left, or I'm mad because blank. But we don't have to go into it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're going to get ready and wrap this thing up. I have one last question we'd love to ask. And that is, we are sitting in a police academy. Your husband works at the academy, so he's training up new officers. So there are a lot of younger folks, some middle-aged folks, some that are married, some that will be married. But if you could speak into the life of a current spouse or a future spouse of someone who has a significant other going into law enforcement, as a spouse, what would you say to them that maybe you wish somebody would have said to you when you were first getting started?
I think it's the same as I said earlier. Give them grace. It's a huge adjustment for the spouse, for the officer. Even coming from, like a military line of work, an adjacent line of work, it's a huge adjustment. And it's a big change from the academy, then going straight to FTO, then straight to the street. Give them grace, be patient. It's really hard at first, but it does get easier. You fall into the motions. You start to understand the terms. You start to understand the flow of it. And it does get easier, but just be patient. Be there for your spouse for this big change that they're also going through, much more acutely because they're on the front line of it. And just understand it's going to get better.
Man, that's some good stuff. Well, I really hope that and I'm certain, because a lot of times what we're finding is these podcasts get passed around from person to person, and I really hope that lands in someone's lap, and I have no doubt that we'll hear that and think, man, I'm so glad that she was willing to open up and share that. So thank you for being vulnerable today. Thanks for being willing to do this. Thank you for supporting your husband. Very thankful for you guys and your family and all that you do. And so thank you for what you do as well, because Lord have mercy, you have a very difficult job in itself. I can't imagine doing that day in and day out. I'm so thankful God has people like you who are doing what you're doing, because so many people can't do that job, just like so many others can't be police officers either. I would really believe what you and your husband are doing, those are callings. Yep. Those aren't just a job, and so thank you so much. And
thank you guys. We appreciate you guys too.
Thank you. Well, fellas, I think that's going to wrap things up, and looking forward to the next episode.
Absolutely. And next time I'm going to come back with a full voice, hopefully, because this is ridiculous.
Feel great.
Stand by for further.
That's right. Well, until the next episode, we will see you guys then. Thanks for spending time today with us on the Shield Armory. We hope this episode brought encouragement, insight, and a reminder that you're not alone out there. Whether you're on the road, behind the desk, on dispatch, or at home, know that your service matters and you are seen. If this episode helped you in any way, share it with someone you feel it could be an encouragement to. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay safe, stay grounded, and as always, watch your six.